Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now September 3rd of 2023, and given that we are inching closer to the D23 event, in which right now the board members are really divided on whether or not they want to debut the official trailer of Snow White 2024 at that event, they're going to make a full decision by this Tuesday. We'll be talking more about that throughout next week and exactly what that entails for the March 2024 release date window for Snow White, and how if they do delay the trailer, it may or may not connect to their plan of delaying this movie until the summer of next year. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that Snow White, the live-action remake, as I like to call it, not Snow White, really. You know, we know that this movie does not deserve that title, in the very least, because of how distant it really is from the Snow White source material. They might as well have just called this something very alienated from the original German tale. Now, looking at everything related to this movie in particular, and what's been going on behind the scenes between Bob Iger, the Disney board, and the test screening for Snow White really not going well, and how it really has been a colossal failure for Disney, and why they are engaging in their Plan A for re-edits of the film above Plan B, which are the reshoots of the film, but the writer's strike and everything happening with SEG is preventing that from happening. Now, moving onwards, what's really interesting has a lot to do with more details surrounding the test screening of Snow White and why it's been getting such a negative response from screeners. Now, with Snow White 24 going through many problems behind the scenes by Disney, one major development has to do with the test screening for Snow White that got negative feedback. However, one crucial sequence that got the worst feedback of all for the entire second act of the film involved the transformed version of Gal Gadot's evil queen as the old hag. Now, the sequence is where Gal sings an entire song about her power over Snow White. The acting and singing by Gal was reported to be unbearable for screeners, to the point that Disney now is considering re-editing that sequence. However, the entire scene is dragged out to around 4 minutes and change. This makes up, of course, for the old hag for Gal, and how she is also described to be mediocre with the acting even by Disney standards. Another sequence that got a very bad response involved a scene in which Zegler's Snow White is teaching a valuable lesson to the 7 magical creatures, aka the 7 dwarfs. It's in this moment that Snow White begins to teach the 7 dwarfs how to tap into their magical powers by believing in themselves. Now guys, let me just stop here real quick and pause before I get to the next big piece of this development. One thing I have to say quick about Gal Gadot is that we know that she really isn't the best actress out there. Say what you will about her, that's just my opinion. I feel that she's not a great actress. I don't think that she's even fitted for Snow White to be singing and to be performing like this. Do we all remember what she did with the whole Imagine song in that cringeworthy compilation of songs that were done throughout 2020? Yeah, so I'm really not all that confident in her singing, and it really did not go that well behind the scenes for the test screening of Snow White. Second, suddenly Snow White, portrayed by Rachel Zegler, is out of nowhere and magically a leader that is able to essentially convince the 7 magical creatures to find their lost power. We're going to be discussing exactly what's going on here toward the end of the second act of Snow White 24. Now, do you guys not feel the same as me? But I feel that this story is just a cobbled mess. It is a mixture of multiple movies or franchises. I feel like it's a mixture of shreds of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Robin Hood, and some other Disney additions mixed in with Snow White material. And quite frankly, there is no Snow White material in here, just the characters and the names. Story-wise, it is so distant from what Snow White ever was, even in the other iterations like Snow White and the Huntsman. So, moving onwards, We know that Disney calls them the magical creatures in this film. They apparently do not call them the seven dwarfs because they felt that that was offensive, and this is all rooted back, by the way, to Peter Dinklage. And about Peter Dinklage, we have something interesting coming up that we want to talk about next week, so we'll keep you on tabs about that. However, moving onwards, there is reportedly a side story in the film that focuses on how the magical creatures are left without their powers due to a certain curse that was actually laid out by the evil queen upon them. Snow White teaches them how to overcome this curse of being in near constant fear that's diminishing their powers. It's an actual scene that revolves around Snow White as a leader, teaching the powerless to gain power again and to believe in themselves, something that was pressed to be filmed by Disney and director Mark Webb for this moment in the final sequence of the second act that was shot back in June of 2022, just before filming was over. Eventually, Snow White is able to boost the confidence of the magical creatures where their powers begin to return, and they break the spell of the evil queen. How Snow White is able to guide them, you may ask, is currently a complete and utter mystery and was one of the big plot holes reported by screeners behind the scenes of the test screening. So here's the bigger issue at large, is that not only is this Snow White tale very distant from the source material, you got people like Rachel Zegler involved, you got Gal Gadot singing, you got the seven magical creatures that are supposed to be the dwarfs but are not the dwarfs, and to top it all off, you have plot holes where now you even have Rachel Zegler's Snow White magically able to break a spell by the evil queen. Now, this just whole sequence sounds like utter nonsense. It goes to show you that Disney does not know how to write a proper tale or a story, because this is exactly why Bob Iger and the board, we talked about this yesterday, they are getting ready to embrace a new era where they retell all the live action iterations that they remade from the animated classics. We already talked about how they want to remake Cinderella 2015. They want to reboot the Maleficent movies. They want to remake Alice in Wonderland 2010. They want to basically do those so they can up their DEI agenda in those films. And they're going to add to that list other ones that have not been made yet, such as Sword in the Stone, Lilo and Stitch, and let's not forget about Moana. That's still a one in active development as well. So, it just goes to show you that this movie is really going to break Disney, and it's going to break them hard. You know, we know that the trailer is not going to do them any good. No matter what they do, no matter how much they hide the actual seven dwarfs or the magical creatures, you still have how distant this movie is going to be from the source material, and how literally Rachel Zegler's comments that resurfaced weeks ago from a couple of years ago have really already damaged the brand and this film in particular. So I would like to hear, your opinion. I would like to see all of you chime in below in the comments what you think about these sequences within the second act of Snow White 2024, and how Snow White is able to break an evil queen's spell upon the magical creatures. What do you think about that? And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.